Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Outside the Barn, brought to you by the good people of New Amendment. I'm Kendal Shell, along with me, Trevor Mbakwe, Blake Hoffarber. Let's go ahead and tip things off, fellas. Blake, Trev first. How we feeling today?
I'm feeling good. It's 28 degrees outside. The sun's out. It's a Sunday. Get to watch the Pro Bowl today, so I'm feeling pretty good. How about you, Blake?
Feeling good. Just getting ready for the warm weather. It's good that we're in positive digits up here in Minnesota, and same with you, Trev. It's the weekend. It's Sunday. We got a good week coming up, and Super Bowl next weekend. So feeling good.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
Hold on, quick, Blake or Kendall. Blake, who you got winning the Super Bowl?
You know, I got the Chiefs.
Kendall?
I like my guy Jalen Hurts, but ever since what Philly did to the Vikings a couple years ago, I can't cheer for Philly.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs as well. For those same reasons. And Mahomes, he's special.
Yeah.
I will say, having Mahomes doing what he's doing without Tyreek Hill is pretty impressive. I thought it wasn't going to be nearly as good as he's been, and I mean, he's just a stud, so it's fun to watch him play.
He's special. He's one of a kind.
I wonder if he's got some eligibility to play basketball for the Gophers here.
I think we need a little bit more than Mahomes right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Mahomes, though, yeah, it's fun to root for the Chiefs. I don't know. I'm assuming both of you are Vikings fans, so you know it's fun to root for a different team. But I'd like to see the Vikings in the playoffs or at least a Super Bowl hunt, again soon here. Because this has not been.
This was supposed to be our year, man.
It's supposed to be, but you kind of knew. Like you saw all the game. I mean, you didn't like that the media always said the Vikings were kind of like a fraud, but in the back of all of our minds, we knew that like there was one Vikings that showed up, and there was one Vikings that showed up like when it was bad, when it was good. So we got the bad Vikings at first round. So
there's a lot of Sundays you walk.
Like I knew we weren't that good, but we were winning these close games at the end of the game, which Minnesota sports never do, and we kept doing it. And I'm like, man, maybe they're just grinders.
Blake,
they grind it out.
Blake, how many times did you go to bed? He was like, that win didn't sit right with me.
Yeah. But you won. Oh, fine. You get a dub. I don't care how you get it done. If you win,
you're right. Hey, Skull.
I mean, on those podcasts this year, we're being positive about losses, how we lost. I mean, at least you can be positive with a win, even if it looks bad.
Right.
That's true. That's true. It's just a lot of optimism you need around Minnesota sports right now. I think maybe there's something we'll talk about, but I don't want to keep this too long, man. I threw some ribs on this morning, so I gotta make sure I take a look at those, and then I gotta go to the driving range tonight too to get the golf swing right. So let's move right along here, man. But normally I know we'd go into the X's and O's. Quite honestly, I don't know if the X's and O's are something we want to talk about right now. I don't know if that's something any of us really need to elaborate on. Been a tough few games, obviously a tough season. All Minnesota sports fans, Minnesota basketball fans know where the Gophers are at with things right now. So let's just kind of move ahead. Let's kind of look to the scouting report. Let's just look to the future in general, because everything else around the X's and O's it's tough right now. So moving on to the scouting report, we've got a little bit of the season left, guys, and quite honestly, I'd say this season's probably a wash. That's just where we're at right now as far as getting anywhere. But as far as taking something from this season and gaining momentum going into next season, I think there's still something to be said about that. So I'll just start with you, Blake. I mean, talk a little bit about where we're at, what it is that we need to look ahead to, and kind of where the climate is, for you right now in the hoop program.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just got to stay positive, and as dumb as it sounds, you got to stay positive. There's nothing quote unquote good happening from how we're performing out there, from the blowouts that have been happening over the past couple of games. Quite candidly, I think what we need to focus on, I always said at the beginning, is we got to get better in each and every week. And I think we slowed down from that perspective a little bit. But the good news is I think we're playing a lot of young guys. We're a young team. They're getting experience playing against studs in the Big Ten and playing a lot of minutes. and they're going to be here in the coming years, which I think is a positive for the Gophers. They're going to have that experience. There's a lot of guys that are young, freshmen, sophomores that don't get a lot of playing time, and their team's doing very well, but they just don't get that playing time. So when those guys graduate, it takes them a while to get up to Big Ten speed because they don't have the minutes, and we're going to have the minutes. We just need to get a lot better and get some guys in here. I know we got some top recruits coming in next year, which is going to be big. I know we're going to have to get another player with Samuels graduating as well. So, I don't want to say, hey, the future is bright, but hey, it's going to be brighter than where we are now. I think the only way to go is up, which is a sad statement, but it's a true statement, right? And I do think, with the experience, the minutes played, and some new guys coming in, that's what we got to focus on. And like I said earlier in the podcast year, you just get better each and every day. And hopefully this summer, they, new guys shine for next fall, next basketball season, where you can tell, like, oh man, they put in work this year. They took it to heart that they were getting blown out by these teams, and hopefully we just are a completely different team next year. What do you think, Trev?
Yeah, to be honest with you, this was like probably the first week when I just kind of just like got to a point. I was like, let's, like you said, like this season, like let's just say it's a wash. We've had a lot of guys in and out of the season. It's tough. But by us saying it's a wash does not mean like we're against the team or anything else. But let's just call a spade a spade. It's just been a tough season. I'm still Team Johnson. I know you guys are the same thing. I tweeted the same thing earlier today. It's like a lot of people, we kind of talked about last show. A lot of people think Coach Johnson's been here for 5 years. He hasn't completed his second season at the University of Minnesota. So, like, everybody's quick to be like, oh, he's done. Like, what's he doing? It's like, it's been 2 years. So, like, if that's the the product you want to put out there every 2 years, then you're never going to have a successful program. And for me, it's just like –
that's a good point, Trev, because just quickly, last year, no one thought we were going to do anything, and we started off the year very hot. We were doing well, and I know we tailed off the end of the year, but everyone thought last year was a wash, where, me included, I was like, oh, man, these guys can play. They're doing well. Then we went on that losing streak, but this year it's just, unfortunately I don't see it, but he's only 2 years into exactly to your point, Trev.
And just seeing his press conference yesterday, it was just like, he takes all, like, I'm big Ben Johnson, just like, we always talk about behind the scenes, but like, for us, I think he's the right person to lead the program. I'm all for him. I'm going to support him as much as I can, just like you guys will. But also, like, for him, it's just like, hey, like, it's a tough season. They dealt with a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of stuff that's came along with it, but that's just part of it. Like, we're not going to run from it. At the end of the day, like, this is how you build momentum for the next part of the season. Like, if they don't make a run at the Big Ten, win the Big Ten, they're not going to make any tournaments, let's be honest. But like, now it's like, how do you finish the rest of the season off? How do you prepare yourself for the Big Ten tournament and move on from that? And I feel bad, like, one of the things too, like, they don't have any players. Like he mentioned, like Pharrell hasn't had a sub in practice. So, like, you can't really practice the way you want to when you have players who can't really sub out because they have to play every possession because they don't have enough players. So, like, as the game goes on, you see, like, them getting beat up. Like, he's like, Indiana, everybody has energy. After Indiana, you have a tough schedule. You still have to keep playing. You have to keep practicing. Like, you get beat up. And you can tell at the beginning of the game, the guys are tired. So that's just one thing when I look at it, like, as a big for myself or Blake, Kendall, like, if you had to sit there and practice every possession and every play and then play 35 minutes a game the next day against Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland, like, that beats you up. And that's
real. That's real. And that's something that, like, is not talked about a lot. And, like, fans got to understand, like, even in my situation, like, my first early years, like, I'm not playing a lot, but, like, both coaches really look to me as that guy to always bring energy and always relieve guys like Trey Hollins and Austin and Joe that are starting. And, like, that was important. Like, scout teams and, like, guys coming in is, like, super important. Well, you don't even have that. Like, it's not like guys are redshirting for this team. You've got guys like Parker and Isaiah. They can't even play. You got guys that are injured. So you're practicing with, like, 9, maybe 10 guys. Like, they probably have student managers in there every day. And so it's difficult. Like, it's different. It's a whole different aspect of it. Like, the bench is just as important as those starters and those main guys. And so we're not even able to get the right reps in and just treat it the same way. Like, that's different. And that affects, obviously the product they're putting out there.
Well, all three of us know, the best teams you've ever been on for the most part is when the entire team has studs on it, even the bench, right? Because every day in practice, you want to play against top talent. And I'm not saying we don't have top talent on the bench. We just don't have the guys. But when you're on a winning team, that starting five has to battle versus that back five each and every day in practice. And the best teams, sometimes that back five is better or can hold their own versus a Big Ten top five, right? Whether it's high school or whatever. But, I went to Hopkins and we always had a bunch of studs when I played. And, our practices were oftentimes, I hate to say it, we had more competitive practices than games. And that just prepared you for when you played the top talent games, especially in the conference or in the state or in the country or in this instance in the Big Ten. And if you don't have that, you're not doing that each and every day because you don't have the bodies or you don't have the talent to practice against. That's tough because then all of a sudden you get shell shocked when you're playing, studs like Jackson Davis, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, my credit to my success that I've had, like I was had to battle against the Blakes and not Blakes, well, you too, Blake, obviously, but like the Royces, like
battling Blake down low for all the rebounds.
It was tough. It was a battle, If I didn't have Blake to, go against, like I would not be the rebounder I was. Like, they always say like the best team, like you said, Blake, just the practices are harder than the games. And right now, I feel like the games are harder than the practices right now. It's like, but granted, like we got a lot of talent. Like the teams are as good, like for whatever reason, like but there's talent in the Big Ten, as you see it, like Yeah. But I don't know. That was an X factor for me.
Like I don't want to think we don't have talent on our team. We're just young, and we literally don't have the bodies to practice against each other too. So, I don't know. I think it's enough of that, but I think that's an issue, right? And I'm with Trevor. I'm Team Johnson as well. I was even one of them. Like, man, has he been here for 3 years or 4? Like, he's only been here. He's not even into 2 years yet, right? So we got to remember that. We got to remember we had one player back when he started. Everyone else transferred away. He's had to rebuild this program and team over the last year and a half and get players in that maybe. I don't want to say he wouldn't have recruited, but he's had to just snag players to fill roster spots. So he was up against the wall a little bit from the start, but we fans and ourselves got to remember we got some studs coming in next year. All of our guys on our team, besides Samuels, I believe, are going to be back, depending on what happens this off season. But they're all young; they're all getting experience. So you got to look to the future too, as much as you don't want to.
But for me, this is a 2-year process. Like even next year, like it's like if they compete the way they've been competing in the games that they've been competitive, we're all as Minnesotans, as Gopher fans, they competed. We lost this game because Purdue was top 5, Maryland was top 15, whatever the case may be. But it's that second year. That's what I'm looking at. Like, Dennis Evans and like Cam Christie and all those guys develop after their freshman year. Pharrell, now you're a junior, and you see like these guys evolving. Like that's the year that I'm really looking at. Like. I'm not gonna say next year's a wash either. Like next year, like obviously, like we want to win, we want to do those, we want to compete. But for me, this is like a 2 or 3 year process. It's like as you start, bringing other transfer portals in and like other guys in and out. Like the team's gonna look different next year. We don't know who's gonna stay. We don't know.
I'm curious, and I just thought of this. I mean, what do you guys think the percentages are that some folks at the transfer portal on our team, or there's a change in coaching staff from an assistant perspective? I'm not saying I know the answer to it, but my guess is there will probably be some change on one of those sides, but we always got to acknowledge that as well.
I can see a couple of players leaving just because I don't think there's any obvious situations for me, but I could definitely see some players leaving. I think the coaching staff is pretty legit. I think just meeting with them, seeing how they work, but I can see some players.
It's crazy to be a coach because you don't even know who's going to leave a lot of times until the end of the year. And then all of a sudden you were like, oh, man, we got 2 extra roster spots to get some seniors, right? Or, it's too late to get some seniors, so we got to go to the transfer portal. But, like we said in the last podcast, it's got to be tough to be a coach too because you don't know what to expect at the end of the year.
I saw some stat that said like the last like bottom 4 teams in the conference have the most transfers. And it was like the top teams in the league have like the least transfers outside like Illinois or somebody.
I believe it.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. I wish I had the exact stat to look at, but
I said this last time, but I think that's part of the reason why maybe I don't want to say college basketball isn't as good right this year. I think it's just you don't see as strong of teams just crushing people. Everyone's kind of beating each other, and I think a lot of that's because you don't have the camaraderie in the 4-year teams with the same players going on. You just got people coming and going, and you can't really gel with team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But yeah, to your guys' points, like look into the future. There's a lot that's coming. Like we need to look to that, and we need to look to. There's a lot of talent coming. There's obviously a lot of guys that aren't playing this year. Like before we even look at the talent, having a Parker and Isaiah is big coming back. But, we got some talented guys coming in, like your Camp Christie and Dennis Evans, right? Both at one point top 100 recruits. And it's important to look to that and not just get so down on the product that's out there right now. Like there's not – it's tough right now. Obviously, he's up against a lot. The conference is tough, but we have to push through it. We have to push through it. But the talent that's coming and the guys that we have right now, I feel like it only helps them getting punched to the mouth so many times this season, right? Like,
let me be honest.
If I were them, or probably Cam Christie and Dennis Evans, I would be, people would think I'm fake for saying this, but I'd be excited, right? And I'd be excited because I'd know, hey, I got a good chance to put in some serious minutes and help this team out. I mean, when I came out of high school, the Gophers had won 8 games that year, I believe, right? Their coach just got fired, Dan Munson. They won 8 games. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're going there. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to have a good chance to compete and help this team out. And I played a lot as a freshman, right? So these 2 guys coming in, they're studs, but you can be a stud and not play a lot of minutes on a team in big time D1 basketball. But, based on what I'm hearing and seeing and probably what they see is they should get excited to say, hey, how can I help out? And I'm going to get some minutes and I'm going to get a chance. So I'm excited to get there and, hit the floor, hit the ground running.
I love that point. That's exactly what I was going to say. Out of anybody, Blake saw the glass half full. So like Blake was like, this is my chance. And me, I'm like, I'm out of here. Like this is this shit. Yeah. So, let's be honest. Like, there's yeah, I left. So like, there's 2 ways to look at it. It's like, for Blake, it's like, you get a chance to compete. Like, I'm glad Blake stayed. Like, I hope Dennis and Cam have the same, mindset. Like, yeah, they're struggling this year, but, now it gives me a chance to come, and change the narrative and change the program, change like the energy around the program. So like, that's how I hope these guys look at it. For me, on my point, I was just like, they're struggling. I don't know who the coach is going to be. I'm trying to go something like sustainable, like that's stable. But, to Blake's credit, like, he stuck through it. Like he saw, like, it was a long season to watch. And I hope these kids, like, they realize, like, there's a lot of opportunity at the end of the day. Like, we're returning most of our team, hopefully, and it's gonna be an opportunity for us to grow as a program and like to have a big third year under Ben Johnson.
No, 100%. I feel like these guys that are there this year, like I said, they've gone through a lot. Like, they should see the opportunity here. Like, obviously, they're losing right now, but like, one more summer together, all these freshmen, like, to your point, Blake, about transferring, like, I would hope none of the freshmen do, because they should be able to see, like, we have something that we could build here, and we can also have a story. Like, it means something getting it up from the ground, right, up from the gutter. And so they can really build something that means something here. They can put a stamp on it. Like, that's important. That's big. You can't normally have that. Like Dame said, like, he never wanted to run from the grind. Like, quite frankly, I don't see any of them run from the grind. Like, yeah, it's a lot of people up against you right now, but they know they have the talent, guys. Like, they know.
Ola Joseph, Braden, Pharrell, you throw in these 2 freshmen and you throw out like an upperclassman for the next 3 years. You tell me this team can't compete and win games?
100.
Even Ola Joseph's like his progress throughout the year. Ola Joseph, like, he's consistent. Like he understands when to attack, when not to attack. Like, just seeing his progressions have improved. Like Pharrell, we know he's going to be a beast. He's going to keep getting better. He's going to stay out of foul trouble. As a freshman myself, I had to go against some of the bigs that he had to play his freshman year. It only gets easier from here.
You got Ola Joseph and Pharrell both guarding Edie and Tracy Jackson Davis. Like, they're getting punched in the mouth. It's only going to help them. And like, that's the thing. Like, you both as freshmen, right? Highly talented freshmen coming in, but you weren't expected to, 1, play 30, 35 minutes a game. And then 2, not just play that many minutes a game, but produce at a high level. It's almost like that's what we're asking these guys and expecting from them, where it's like, let's be realistic on what we expect on highly rated freshmen, like the highest of the highest, consistently. And I think that's what we forget. Like, these guys that are playing, this is a young team overall, very young team, and a young team in the Big Ten because a lot of guys are transfers too that haven't even had that Big Ten basketball exposure.
This builds your character. This builds your career. I remember my freshman year, came off an injury, first game against DeJuan Blair, then go against Hashim Thabit, then I go against Terrence Williams. It was like a gauntlet in the Big East, the real Big East at the time. It was just like, and that prepared me. I was like,
DeJuan Blair was a beast. I remember him.
Dude, it was
basketball for bigs.
And I remember Paul Harris, it was like going against all these guys my freshman year. I remember looking at it sometimes like, damn, I don't know if I could do this. But then prepare me moving forward is like, okay, if I could play against Hashim Thabit, first round pick, Jeff Adrian, another second round pick, like all these guys who made some NBA, why can't I play against these guys? So,
damn, what happened to you, Trev? No, but in all seriousness, I mean, the one thing I will be disappointed, I'm not saying I'm not disappointed because I'm, it's hard not to not be disappointed this year, just on what you're seeing. But I'm going to be bummed if they write themselves off as players and kind of have games like they've been having the last 2 or 3 games throughout the rest of the year because they know, hey, we can't do anything in the Big Ten. We can wait to the Big Ten tournament. But if they start doing this for the rest of the year, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be pissed, right? Because they got to look, hey, they got to get better each and every time. Like, they're not going to win the Big Ten. We get it, right? They don't have enough games left. They're not playing well, but they need to worry about getting better each and every game, thinking about Big Ten tournament, but more importantly, think about next year, right? It's not like, all of a sudden we can coast and this season's done, and then all of a sudden come next fall, let's just pick it up and we're going to be better, right? If they're going to get better, they need to start yesterday, right? And hopefully they have that mentality. And, I just don't want to continue watching, not saying they're not trying, but like they got to continue to have the effort and fight that they had in the Indiana game all the way throughout the rest of the year. If they lose all the games, so be it, right? But you need to see that fight, that dog in them to, compete. And if they get blown out playing like that by 20, so be it. But I don't want to see them get blown out by 20 and being lackadaisical and lazy and kind of thrown in the towel because, they're a little sad that how the years go.
Even for them personally, like those walks back to the dorm and to classes are long in the winter.
Sure. Practice every day, like it's just mentally terrible. It's a terrible vibe, and that's hard on Ben Johnson too. Like that's why it's so important for him to keep a positive atmosphere, right? And it's like you got media, fans, boosters, the AD, everybody just talking about how bad you're doing. And as a coach, that's why you have to be mentally strong because you can't come into practice every day mad and down because then the players, how are they going to feel, right? You still got to keep a competitive nature about it and also keep that optimism because these guys are young. You don't want guys transferring. You don't want guys just, being out of it at all. But yeah, you look at guys on this roster, you talked about Josh Olajoseph earlier, Trev. I love Josh Olajoseph. I think we talked about that since the beginning, but Josh Olajoseph, his energy, his junkyard dog mentality since the beginning has been unbelievable, right? He does not back down from anyone. And as you talked about earlier, his progressions and understanding the game has developed so much, when to drive, when not to drive. It might be going out there a little bit, but I could see him expanding his game and having this same type of impact that a Victor Oladipo had in Indiana, right? Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Victor Oladipo, when we played him, we beat them, by the way, number 1 Indiana, in case anyone wants to look back at that game. But we beat number 1 Indiana that year, but that squad was unbelievable. Cody Zeller, Christian Watford, Victor Oladipo, all those guys. And Vic was one of those guys on that roster that did everything. He got to the rim. He was athletic. He was a best defender on the team. He did all that type of stuff. He was somewhat of a 3-level scorer. I think he expanded his game more once he got to the league. He wasn't shooting it from 3 as much, but seeing Olajoseph where he's at now, I could see him getting to that level, adding a little bit more of a handle and also adding that mid-range game. He can be a dog for the conference. We talked about Pharrell Payne being a potential all Big Ten player, but if Josh Olajoseph puts in the right work, I think all the intangibles he has, you can't really teach from all the freshmen.
He could play 2 through 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, I 100% agree with you, Kendall. I mean, I think what if I would focus on for him is getting that handle right and being able to shoot a little better. Because if he can try to be like a 2 or 3 guard, I mean, I kind of consider him. I know he's maybe 3, but I consider him a 4 right now, just kind of how he plays. But if he can try to be a 2 or 3, man, he'll be tough. And going back to my previous point, I mean, you got to realize Joshua Joseph, Henley, Carrington, Talon Cooper, like they're almost in a tryout at the end of the year here, right? Because you know what the coaching staff's going to be doing right now. They got 1 scholarship, potentially more. They're probably going to need to get a guard, right? So you better work your tail off because someone might be taking your spot. So they got to have that mindset as well and continue to get better. But I agree with you. I think Joshua Joseph, he does have a lot of upside. I just think one thing I'd want him to start focusing on to get to be a 2 or 3 guard is shooting and dribbling. Most likely he'll probably be a 3 guard. And I know people say, hey, he can play 3 now, but I don't know what you guys think. I see him as he is right now, a 4-man out there, kind of how he plays. If he can get to a true 3 wing kind of player that can shoot, dribble, put it on the floor, get to the foul line because he's aggressive, going at people's chests, like that's what we need.
I like him as a 3. I like him as a 3 if you have Dawson playing the 4, spotting up around the perimeter. You got Pharrell down as a 5. You can use him as your post-up big because he's really going to have the mismatch in the post majority of the game.
No, I think it's almost like we have to when you say it to that point, Trev, it's like, yeah, those are the 4 and 5s, but then you got Parker and Isaiah coming behind at the 4. You got Dennis Evans coming behind at the 5. In order to even keep a good climate and maximize everybody, you want those guys to kind of be the 4 and 5s. We almost have to see Ola Joseph, play more of a 3 role or a wing role. And yeah, to both your points is adding the handle and, more of a consistent jump shot. But at the end of the day, I think he's learned a lot and he's been up against the best. I don't know which one you said it, but he can guard 2 through 5. Who can do that? Who can do that?
Hey, look, if we can't shoot next year, it's going to be an issue. But we're over 60%. We're over 60% from the free throw line for the season. I saw that.
That's huge. That's big. This the little win to celebrate.
Yes, exactly. But
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we do. But let's move on, man. Let's move on to the next segment here. So let's kind of move on to the word on campus and just talk about the overall temperament of the program and essentially what the word on campus is. So, I'll open things up. It's similar to what we've talked about in the past, and it'll probably keep on this conversation, but fans are frustrated. I think, Blake, you talked about it earlier. There's much reason to be frustrated this season. And as we talked about, Gopher fans get pretty impatient pretty early. And if you look at, most of the social media posts and most of the tweets from the team, Trevor, I saw you quote tweet today, Ben Johnson's interview, just to kind of bring more positivity around it. But I think you did that because you saw that, the sentiment around the program right now is calling for Ben Johnson's job. That's what people talk about. That's what people like to do. That's the easy thing to do. Quite frankly, that's the lazy thing to do. And that's the sentiment of the program. So, we'll open it up with that. I can open it up with, I hate to see it. I don't like to see it. Like you talked about earlier, Blake, we can be critical of this program. We can be critical of this team. We've talked about it. This team needs to play better. They need to compete more. We can't see this team get blown out for the rest of the season. But you don't always have to just all of a sudden say, yeah, we need a new coach. We need a new program, right? We've hit rock bottom. That's been the problem since I've quite frankly been around Minnesota basketball. When I came in with Tubby in 2011, it's always a constant calling for the coach's job. And we don't want to always call for the coach's job. That's not good. We don't, recruits and players, they see that stuff, that doesn't help the program. That doesn't help the overall sentiment of the program. They're not dumb. They know, Minnesota, it's a hotbed for coaches, right? As far as the getting there, it's a hot seat at all times. You're there. And what did you say earlier, guys? It's Ben Johnson's second season. He came in trying to turn around, quite honestly, a mess. It's the second season. We're already calling for his job. And quite frankly, it's not good for the program. It's not good for us as alumni. It's not good for recruiting. There is no type of culture or consistency built. over just us three, right? We played in like the last 10 years. There's been about 3 or 4 coaches. How do you like develop any type of culture or identity with a program if you're always changing coaches and, trying to figure it out? Like a lot of these teams, Dukes and probably the Michigan States of the world, they preach brotherhood and they preach all this togetherness. And like, we can't do that if there's always a consistent, we need a new coach. It's the coach's fault. It's the coach's problem. Like, since when are we so just impatient? You know what I mean? Like, we need to give him more time. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Let's talk a little bit more about it.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, he's only 2 years in, not even 2 years in. I think it's ridiculous, but it's the world we live in right now that people say this stuff, and anyone can say anything on a message board or, online. I get some of it's the some of it's the coach on how teams do, but players got to look themselves in the mirror as well, right? The coach isn't playing, the coach is helping, strategizing, getting the team out there, structuring the team. But we had the Mr. Basketball. We've had good recruits come in. Obviously, we had to hit up the transfer portal a lot, but like, we have good players and good recruits. Like, if anyone says, "Hey, Ben Johnson hasn't done a good job recruiting," like, I wouldn't agree with that at all. He's getting good recruits in. It's just going to take some time. And to your point, if we just keep saying, "Hey, let's fire this guy," and this year we didn't do well, so let's fire him. I mean, at some point, you just keep starting over, and you don't even start over. You start 2 years behind starting over. So, I mean, I don't agree with the, "Hey, let's fire him." Like, nowadays, even at the business world, right? A company doesn't have a good year, and bam, they start firing the executive leadership team, even though they could have had good years in the past. I mean, we all remember when my good friend Ryan Saunders' dad, Flip Saunders, won the Western Conference Coach of the Year with the Timberwolves for crying out loud, and then got fired the next year because they weren't having a good year. It's just like, it's a little ridiculous, and I get why. Hey, we're having a terrible year. It's not good.
I'm sorry, but
anywhere I go,
I don't get
they
why.
bring up Gopher.
I don't get why.
What'd you say?
I don't get why. I can't say sorry. No,
They bring up Gopher basketball, and no one, everyone's got their tail between their legs. Like, they know it's been a tough year, but then all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Hey, what about Ben Johnson?" I mean, it's like, it's a little ridiculous. We got to give him time. Obviously, everyone says, "Oh, but he's making so much money," right? Well, yeah, every coach is, right? That's just the world and the career point they're in. He's also taking a lot of criticism, and it's got a stressful job. So, I'm not saying, "Hey, I like how the program is at this stage." I'm not saying I like how the year's going. In my eyes, it's been pretty shitty to watch, to be honest, just because, I want us to win. I was an alumni. I grew up liking the Gophers, and we're in a tough spot right now, but we can't just put our tail between our legs, sulk, and try to start firing people just because we're in a bad time, right? We got to stick together, worry about the future, trying to get good players here, trying to get players to improve and kind of embrace the team. And that's the only way to get positivity around the program.
Yeah. For me, it's frustrating. It gets frustrating because at the end of the day, it's like, if we're going to, I love the University of Minnesota just like we all do. We're Gopher fans. We bleed maroon and gold. Like, we watch all the football, every sport as much as we can. Me and Blake, we're from Minnesota, born and raised. It frustrates me because let's be realistic about things. Like, there's no coach in the world. If Coach K came out of retirement and said he wanted to be at the University of Minnesota, we're not turning into a championship contender overnight. Like, that's not how the Big Ten works. This is like not a small conference. Like, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of talent that's been through this conference. And for the fact that we're calling for a guy's head after a year and a half, like last year, Ben Johnson, the first 20 games of the season, we knocked off, a couple of big teams. Like, he's like, oh, like, he's what we need. He's a hometown. He's one of us. Then next year, he has some injuries he battles with. He has some transfers he's trying to, navigate through. And like, now it's like, oh, well, he's not here. We should fire somebody. We should fire him, hire somebody else. Like, what are we doing? And like, part of it too is like, how do we show our commitment to our guys? Mm-hmm. If we can't follow behind, if we can't give Ben Johnson 2 years, like, why would, as the next person come in and be like, this fan base or this alumni group, they don't support us? And that's across the board. That's every sport, the PJ Flex and everything. Like, PJ loses a game, but like, do you know the change PJ Flex has had on the football team, which brings in money to the university, like having college game day at the TCF for 2-3 years in a row, like all that stuff, the publicity that comes with it. It's just like, at what point do we just like just let coaches coach. Give them 3-4 years like they always did. Okay, after 4 years, you had 3-4, recruiting groups come through. Okay, we don't see the program getting better. Now it's on to the next. Like this 2 years, it's crazy to me. Like you could win, like you said, Blake. You could go to a conference championship, win a national championship in 2 years, be on the hot seat. Like the coach from LSU, Ed. Like, how do you win a national championship and 2 years later you're fired?
Well, people got to realize too, as fans, and Kendall, I'll let you go, but as fans, we got to quit doing that too, because recruits see that too, right? They look at the media, right? And I remember when I was getting recruited at a couple of spots. I mean, obviously I'm a hometown kid, so it didn't affect me that much. I kind of knew Munson was not in a good spot, but I'd look up, okay, so-and-so's recruiting me. You'd look online and, so-and-so's on the hot seat. He's recruiting me. I don't know if I want to go on a state to go to that school because I really like the coach, but if they get a new coach, how will I know if he likes me and if I can play in that system, et cetera? So, it's negative from a recruiting perspective too. So fans got to be a little strategic as well to not just jump the gun and start shooting off random stuff like that.
No, 100%. You're like you said, recruits see that type of stuff. Recruits, and that affects it. That affects the culture. And it'd be one thing, to be constructive about the criticism, right? Like, I'm not telling fans, I don't think any of us are telling fans not to be hard on this program because we all want to win. But just jumping to let's fire the coach, it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the program. It's lazy. And, we see it since the beginning, a coach that we all played under, Tubby Smith, right? I don't want to go on a soapbox here, but that's just a prime example. Trev, we had a pretty good season. We didn't do as great as they maybe thought we would have, but we beat the number 5 team that year in the NCAA tournament. We were the 12th seed. And then the next game, we lost to Florida, a really good Florida team. But we made the NCAA tournament, and we were on the up and up. Next morning, we all find out Tubby's fired. And then we start over. Like, looking back on it, Tubby probably shouldn't have been fired. But that's just an example of starting over consistently. To your point earlier, Blake, it's hard because especially in this day and age, it's not starting over from zero, is starting over from negative with the transfer portal and all these other factors that play into the success of a basketball program.
I mean, to your point, Ben Johnson pretty much didn't start over at zero. He started off at like -5. Mm-hmm. Like, with the amount of people that transferred away from the program, I mean,
would you have 2 returning players?
Or him, I would have taken a big, heavy gulp. I mean, it's a good thing where he's like, okay, I can bring a team in, but yeah, I can't really do that myself because I got to go on the transfer portal and get guys maybe I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have this many roster spots.
Hold on, what's the exact number?
To build his own players.
He had 2 returning players coming back? Was it Parker and
1?
Who was it? Parker?
Are you talking about this year?
Last year when he first took over.
It was just Enoch.
Jeez.
He was the only one, and he didn't really play the year before, wasn't he hurt? Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's kind of crazy about the whole thing. So, theoretically, it would take him longer than normal to build this team up and start being competitive because the timing he came in when everyone left and he had 1 player coming back that hardly got any minutes on previous teams. I mean, that's tough. And going to your point, Kendall, that's not starting off from zero. That's starting off from like -5 years, right? And he's got to build this thing up and get players that he needed to get in just to have bodies out of the program to bring in his own people. And I'm not saying, I'm not pointing out, hey, some of these people probably want to play for him, but let's be honest. Some of these guys on the team, he probably wouldn't have recruited if he had 2 or 3 scholarships for each of these past 2 years.
No, yeah, 100%. It's one guy, literally. He brings back one guy his first year. Like, I don't know. It's hard for people to remember that type of stuff when you're losing, obviously, but you bring back one guy and you do what he did last year, undefeated in non-conference, right? He developed a culture, a winning spirit, but he brought in experienced guys. And that's kind of what happened. And this year is more of a sustainable build. He's building from the bottom, and he's getting these freshmen, these guys cracks at it. But at the end of the day, these last few games, they haven't been competing, but also they're putting out 7 scholarship guys. They've got 3-4 guys out with injury. So hey, at the end of the day, it's tough. We're all upset. We all want to win more, but we can all agree that let's just be constructive on what's going on. Let's not just call for the coach's job. And also let's understand this is year 2. This is year 2. It looks really bad. Like, I mean, we'll be honest. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it. Like, shit, they're in last place right now. We haven't seen that before. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to keep pushing. We're going to have to stay positive. And like we talked about earlier, fellas, we got some dogs coming in with Dennis Evans and Camp Christie. We got some guys that are hurt right now. We got some guys that are going through a lot right now, a lot of adversity this year. It's only going to make them stronger. At the end of the day, as long as we get out, we recruit, we get the right transfers we need this offseason, I think we'll get there. I think we'll make this thing work. But fellas, you know,
good news is I think the theme for this is there's only a way. The only way to go is up. So we can't keep going down. At least I hope to God we're not. That'd be digging underneath the earth from where we are right now. But I think we only can go up from here. So that's what we got to stay positive. We got to realize kind of we're at a low of all lows right now. And we gotta go up from here.
That's true. We can only go up from here, literally.
And we still got a chance at the Big Ten tournament. So, you know, Indy, Big Ten tournament, I'm ready. Let's shock the world. Too soon?
Too soon. But there's no time.
Hey, as much as maybe we don't believe it can happen, they got to have the mindset as a team, right? Each and every day to get better to do that, right? So, yeah. I mean, like I said, they just got to keep continuing to improve, and we gotta worry about the future here. We can't really worry about the past.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're Team Ben Johnson, like Trevor Mbakwe tweeted. Follow him, TMBakwe32 on Twitter. And that's it, fellas. Let's wrap it up here. You know, we'll check back in after these next few games and just stay close on things. But for another episode of Outside the Barn, Kendal Shell, Trevor Mbakwe, Blake Hoffarber, we'll see you guys later.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.